to a close. I think, arguably the best new era season. I know we'll talk about it in terms of the winner and thoughts and whether people think 45 is better, but I think most of us can agree all around probably the best new era season because we had a great cast, no reliance on advantages or journeys or even a lot of backstories. Probably a really close feel to Classic Survivor that we've had in a while. So I can't wait to break down the end of the season.
And in the end, we have Kenzie beating Charlie and Ben in a 5-3-0 vote. And look, I gotta say, we spoke last week about how we thought Kenzie had the second best chance. I think the Survivor community kind of picked up on this potential under the radar edit that Kenzie was maybe getting. And when I say under the radar, I mean like under the radar winner edit. I think that, a lot of people didn't really pick up on this until late into the season. And I think there was a lot of momentum going into the finale from the Survivor community and Survivor fans that were like, I think Kenzie can legitimately win this. What I didn't think is I did not think she was going to be able to beat Charlie. I thought Charlie was just not going to get there. And it happened. She beat Charlie 5-3. And of course, the big story is Maria ends up voting for Kenzie and not Charlie. And Ben says he would have voted for Charlie in a tiebreaker, which means Maria was a vote that costed Charlie $1 million, which is not the way I thought the season was going to end after everything that we saw. But I'm excited to get into it. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think the biggest takeaway that I've had, again, like you said, other than Maria voting for Kenzie, is that I think the story that I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter is basically one of two things. Either people are very happy Kenzie won, Kenzie was the right winner, very happy, whatever. Or, Dylan, I'm seeing people say, I understand why Kenzie won. Kenzie played a great social game. Kenzie is a good winner, but Charlie just dominated the game. He had a lot more strategic hold on the game, was well positioned. And I think that tells me two things, Dylan. I think it tells me, one, that fans of Survivor, because obviously this is the classic Aubrey and Michelle debate again in terms of a strategic game versus a social game. I think it tells me that the fans, as this show has evolved, have started to appreciate a social game more, even though I think most people would say Charlie was the best player of the season, no questions asked. People, I think they appreciate a social game more. But Dylan, I think the other big thing here is Survivor has finally learned how to edit a winning social game. And when I say that, it's like people for years did not understand why Michelle beat Aubrey. Aubrey was the clear winner. How did Michelle win? And it's like, oh, she had a social game, but we didn't really see what she was doing as much. And then even in the new era, it's like, oh, how did Erica win? We don't know how that happened. Marianne, she took out Omer, but we didn't see what Marianne did socially. We saw a little bit of what Jam Jam did socially, but we still were like, okay, well, it could have been, Carolyn and Carson was the best player. And then last season, Dee just dominated. So do you think, Dylan, Survivor has finally done a good job at showing a winning social game? Because like you said, Charlie was the best player, but neither of us are shocked that Kenzie won.
Yeah, I think, a lot of it has to do with 90-minute episodes, but I think Survivor did do a good job this season of showing Kenzie's social game. And like, you could go, look, here's what I think. I think two things can be true, right? You could think that Charlie was potentially robbed in this season, or quote unquote robbed. And I use the quotes, quote unquote, robbed, because I don't mean like, when I say robbed, I don't mean like Kenzie shouldn't have won. Charlie had to be the winner here. This is not Russell Hantz and Natalie White. You know what I mean? Like it's not anything near that, right? You could think that Charlie was robbed and be upset that he did not win this season, and also acknowledge that Kenzie was a very much deserving winner. And that's kind of what I feel. I think, I look back at texts from the season premiere between me and you, and it was very clear, literally from the first confessional that they showed of Kenzie, that she was extremely likable. And here's one other thing. I have been, I think one thing about this season is it was good enough to the point where I'm still invested and looking through Twitter stuff 3 days later, which that has not always been the case in the new era. And I think the last two seasons I was, very much invested to the point where I'm still looking at so much stuff after. I have seen plenty of people say that, quote unquote, like Charlie maybe should have won, but I do not see a single person. I have not seen a single person all season, fans, players, anything, that have had anything negative to say about Kenzie. And I think that like that shows like that's it right there. That shows why she won the game, right? She played a great social game. Everybody liked her. She managed to, her social game was so good that literally, after like all these shields started popping up, Q, Hunter, Maria, all throughout the season, after the merge, basically nobody even mentioned Kenzie as a name that needed to be voted out. And she was sitting right there the whole time, right? And I think, speaking to my brother and his thoughts on the season, he said something to me. He goes, Kenzie strikes me as the type of player who, in a lot of other seasons, they like realize that she's there at Final 7, and they're like, oh, well, if she's there at the end, everyone loves her, she's gonna win. And they did not realize that this season. Like, she was able to still get there to the end. And, once, we got to the end, even though Charlie was sitting there, you start to do the jury votes in your head and you're like, you know what? Like, Kenzie could really pull in a majority of these votes here and get the win. And that's exactly what she did. And again, she was really, really good at Final Tribal Council. I don't want to hear, we could get into this debate later. I don't want to hear any of like the, nonsense that people are saying, like, oh, Q's questions shouldn't be allowed at Final Tribal Council. Like, no, like, coming into the game that this is a game for $1 million. That, of course, people's stories, of course, plays a role in who gets the money at the end. That's part of deciding who to vote out, deciding who to bring into the end. So I don't want to hear any of that. She did a great job, Final Council. Kenzie was a well-deserving winner. And yeah, I'm excited to get into other parts of this episode.
Yeah, I think your brother brings up a really good point too, where it's like, the word Jeff used all season, or at least in the merge portion, was smokescreen, because Q just caused a lot of like cloud over other things happening, because the whole focus was on like, let's vote out Q, or we can use Q as like a smokescreen and we can vote out somebody else. So that was the whole vibe of the merge. And I guess to that point, Kenzie was able to benefit from that chaos, because there was, like you said, always another name popping up. Hunter's name popped up, Tiffany's name, Maria's name. People wanted Venus gone. People saw Q as a threat. Eventually, in the end, voted him out. So Kenzie was able to benefit from that chaos, and she was always able to be used as a number to get done what people needed to get done. And people never were like, oh, I can't get rid of Kenzie because Kenzie's a number for me. I like Kenzie. And as you mentioned, she's so well liked that people in the game liked her, and the fans, you said, no one's saying, oh, this is a bad winner. Everyone's saying either she's a great winner or she's good, but Charlie dominated the season. So that just shows you the pull that she had. And furthermore, Dylan, we can sit here and say she technically never got a vote against her, because the only vote she got was Ben writing down the wrong name when he meant to write down Venus. So she really got no votes. Even D last season, D played a masterful game. Even D, granted, she got that one random vote from Sean, which shouldn't have counted, but like, even at the final 5, Katora wrote down her name. So like, technically Kenzie didn't get a vote and D did. So again, I'm not saying that she played more of a dominant game than D, but like, Kenzie was so well liked that she really needed to, she had a great social game, and she didn't need to rely on idols, didn't need to rely on advantages. And granted, neither did Charlie. Charlie positioned himself so well, he never needed any gimmicks either, although he did win 2 immunities. And Kenzie also won 2 immunities. And I think the jury respected her social game, but they also could say, well, look, we can't say that Charlie also outbeasted her, because she won 2 challenges like he did, and she won fire, which they shouldn't take that into account. But like, they were very even on a physical and social standpoint. It's just that Charlie had a better strategic game, but they really valued Kenzie's social bonds more.
Yeah, and if we're breaking down the jury votes, we had Tevin, Tiffany, Venus, Q, and Maria voting for Kenzie. So she gets both Yanu members in the jury. She ends up getting Q, and she ends up getting Tiffany, which I definitely, obviously, we knew Tiffany was voting for her, right? Yeah. Q, I thought could go either way, but I kind of got a sense that he would reward like being like, like with Kenzie kind of from day one. When I say with Kenzie, like not in the game, but like, he was on her starting tribe. I thought that would be a factor for him. So I'm not surprised there. Venus, I kind of thought we always thought that she was going to go Kenzie.
Yeah.
Tevin obviously was, I thought, up in the air. And Maria was obviously extremely shocking. And then we had Hunter, Liz, and Soda, who voted for Charlie. So he gets 3 Nami votes. I think Liz was pretty shocking. But nothing like the Maria vote, and we could get completely into that, and I'm excited to talk about it. look, I think, and here's what I'll say. I was rooting for Charlie this entire season.
Yep.
As somebody who has watched this show for a long time, and not everyone always agrees with this, but you know, my like end judging of a season, like part of it is like I love when a guy who when I say guy, I also mean girl. When somebody who
Player,
dominates
yeah.
when somebody who dominates the season like wins in the end, there's no better feeling. There's so much satisfaction knowing like this person had such control and strategy over the entire game, gets to the end and wins. So yeah, I did want Charlie to win because I thought that he played, in my opinion, one of the better non-winning games that I have ever seen on Survivor. And he's right up there with me of the Damabates and players that came so close but fell just short and absolutely need another chance to be on this show. Maybe season 50 they both get back. But yeah, I was and plus obviously we had our pool Ryan that I would have won if Charlie won. So I was rooting for Charlie. I would have felt, as somebody who was rooting for Charlie, I would have felt better about him losing had he lost in a 6-2 or had he gotten Maria's vote and somebody else had given the Kenzie vote. Because again, I think Kenzie is a deserving winner. She's a solid winner. I have absolutely zero issue with Kenzie winning. It's just and there was like a Reddit post on Survivor Reddit that got like over 1,000 upvotes from like literally like 12 hours ago. That is like, I figured out why I feel so unsatisfied with this season. It's literally just because the one vote that did not go the way that of basically the story that we had been watching the entire season. And it happened to cost Charlie the $1 million. It was that one vote that we thought was a shoo-in, that everybody thought was a shoo-in, ends up going, from Maria to Kenzie and not to Charlie. So I'll be honest, it was tough to watch in real time. I feel bad for Charlie that he did not get that vote. I don't, and I mean, I don't want to get too much into like the personal aspect of things, but it seems like Maria has been like pretty inconsistent with her reasoning of why she made the vote. So I do feel bad for Charlie in that sense, but Charlie's handled it extremely well. I thought that, look, he's better than me, because if that happens and I had to give a reaction right there at Tribal Council in the after show, I don't know what would have happened. The fact that he was able to kind of just stay calm and give an answer was super impressive for somebody like my age. I think me and Charlie are the same age. So, but like, it was like, it's so funny because that was just truly one of the more wild final tribal votes that I have ever seen.
Yeah, no, it is pretty crazy. I mean, the first thing I will say is I do feel bad because postseason, obviously I feel bad for Charlie because he was a bit shell-shocked. And that's one reason why I'm not a fan of these live reunions after the season immediately. Because obviously, Jeff likes it because it's very raw and it's right afterwards. But obviously some people like Charlie are a bit shell-shocked that they didn't win, especially when he expected Maria's votes. So I do feel bad for the players. And like you said, Charlie handled it with so much class to not only be respectful of Maria and just be like, look, it's a game. I understand. And he gave the full Tom Westman answer of like, look, the player that gets the votes deserves to win. That's just how the Survivor works. It's your job not to make them bitter. It's your job to play the game that you are playing and to communicate that to the jury. That's the results. And that's what Tom Westman said in Heroes versus Villains. And it's the same thing here. So I give Charlie a lot of credit for being classy in the moment. And even postseason, he's like, guys, please be classy. And even to this day, 3 days later, he's like, please do not send Maria hate, because I feel bad. Maria's getting a lot of hate directed her way, not just on social media, but also personally. So I really hope people don't engage in that, because it is, at the end of the day, just a game. But yeah, no, I do feel like Charlie expected that vote. And I see your point entirely, Dylan, where it's like, if Kenzie had won 5-3, but Maria was one of the 5 votes, and let's just say it was somebody else, would have made more sense, especially because that vote would have caused Ben to break the tie in Charlie's favor. So it is obviously a bit of a shock there. And I do think the reasoning was, like you said, a bit inconsistent, where she says it was because of the fire, but then another press, she was always going to vote for Kenzie, and then she said different things to Charlie. So in the end, if I had to guess what really happened without casting any negative things towards Maria, I get the sense that like she liked Kenzie and she was a bit annoyed that Charlie got her, because she can't even say that Charlie stabbed her in the back, because she did the same thing to him. Maybe it's just a matter of she got, and she likes Kenzie, and she was fine to vote for Kenzie, but like we all expected her to vote for Charlie.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, social game is like it comes first before strategy. Like that's just the truth of Survivor. Like, and I think, like you said, I think the Survivor community has, and me especially, like, I think that I'm somebody who, and I maybe I just have to rewatch Ko Wrong, but like I remember in real time watching Ko Wrong how shocked I was that Michelle won.
Same.
I thought, I think everybody was, right. I think we saw by like the time we watched Winners at War, we saw like, oh, it's so obvious like why Michelle won that season. Like so likable. Like they showed so much for in Winners at War that we did not see in Ko Wrong. But the parallels are pretty crazy between that season and this season. And yeah, Kenzie, I mean, Unreal social game. At the end of the day, the goal of Survivor is to get people to like you enough to reward you $1 million. And that comes first before how you get there and everything, right? And she did that the best. So well-deserving winner. I think, it was, I forgot as I forgot as you to say, but yeah, I think we could go into like final tribal council and like, is there a spot? Let me ask you this, Ryan.
Sure.
Is there something Charlie could have done differently to change the outcome of the game? And I've thought about this a few times the last few days, and I really feel like his game was near flawless. It's like, what could he have done to change the outcome? And, I'm sure he could have, and before I let you answer, like, we only see such a small bit of the final tribal council. Per everybody on the jury, they said Charlie was very good at final tribal council. It may have looked a little bit different in the edit. But I mean, like, not only at final tribal council, but like game moves, is there anything that he could have done to have changed the outcome?
I feel like not much, because like we've been saying for the last several weeks, Charlie played a very dominant game in terms of strategic and social, but he was not very outward in front. He was able to operate in the shadows. He was able to make votes happen. People wanted to work with him. No one was saying his name. We said 2 or 3 times, how is no one targeting Charlie here in this vote? Even in Final 5, and I know we'll get through the episode after we get through Final Tribal, but like, even when Charlie's vulnerable at Final 5, Maria doesn't even throw out his name. She throws out Ben's name because he's so well positioned that she thinks there's a shot he's going to work with me again. Because he always, as he said, he always kept his options open. And I do feel like, Dylan, he answered the questions pretty well. His only knocks that he may have gotten was like, oh, well, I took control of the Hunter vote. And then Hunter's like, well, technically Kenzie was the one that made me feel comfortable. And then he said, well, I used my vote for Venus to kind of downplay my intelligence to get into the 6. And then they're like, well, the 6 wasn't really a great thing. It was not that good. And then Maria brought you in. So other than those 2 little hiccups, I do think he actually spoke very well and made a really great case. I think, Dylan, what he could have done differently was like, I hope that Liz beat Kenzie. Because at that point, I mean, obviously you said this to me too. Like if it's Charlie, Liz, and Ben, he sweeps that. So he just got a little unlucky there. And maybe he could have answered one thing differently. But at that point, it sounds like the jury just really liked Kenzie. So he played, to your point, near flawlessly, I feel like.
And who knows what would, I mean, like, I still assume that Maria would have been well, like, there's also a scenario where Liz changed the outcome of the season in the final 5 immunity challenge, right? Like, let's think, like, right? Like, sure, did she also cost Charlie the win? Like, I'm not even kidding, because if Maria wins, who knows what happens, right? I think Charlie goes out at 5, probably, but you don't really know what happens. Maybe people look at Kenzie, and that's the moment that people say, wow, Kenzie's still here. She's so likable, but they didn't even have an opportunity to do that because she wins at Final 5. So I think, like you said, it's tough to pinpoint a spot. Obviously, you could say like he could have looked at Kenzie earlier in the game potentially and he got rid of her, but it's such a, you never know what would have happened after that. You never know what his path would have looked like. I think, like you said, he needed Liz to beat Kenzie. In terms of like answering questions, I thought one thing that they did a really good job of showing, I think, is Kenzie kind of played to Maria's ego at the end of the game. I don't know, like if you picked up on that, but at the final tribal when at the final 5 tribal council, when Maria goes out, Kenzie spends like a minute talking about how much she respects Maria, how much she looks up to her, all this stuff before Maria goes out, right? And then she ends up getting her vote at the end. I think that like I thought about that. Like, could Charlie have done something similar at Final Tribal Council where he was like, I needed Maria in this game. Maria is the reason I'm sitting here. One of the reasons I'm sitting here. Like, I needed her as my number one. She was my partner in crime. We made all these moves together. I was like, he didn't really talk about Maria much in what we saw, which was surprising to me. But if you watch the exit press, Charlie he told Rob Cesternino, he said, I actually spent a while at Final Tribal giving Maria her flowers and talking about how important she was. And they didn't show it in the edit, but that's what I was going to say. And then apparently he did it and it did not matter, which is even more shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be actually honest. I only saw a snippet of the exit press because I had a really busy week at work, so I need to catch up on a lot of the exit press and exit interviews over this 3-day weekend. I just saw like some snippets that people put on social media. But yeah, no, I do think that Charlie, from what we saw on TV, at least, I'm sure he did this on the show on the island, answered the questions as well as he could. Kenzie, I think, answered them pretty well also. I mean, we haven't really talked about Ben, but I think we kind of knew Ben was drawing dead at this point. But I do think Charlie did play up the fact that, like, I was well positioned. I did things with a purpose. I wasn't waiting for people to come to me with plans and ideas and just being a number. I was trying to make things happen. And look, I mean, like you said, you have to placate to the jury, whether that's stroking Maria's ego, stroking Q's ego, giving them a lot of respect. Like, oh, I would have like Liz, like you were a big threat, Liz, to win and stuff. So I do think you have to do that, but I do think you have to just own your game and stand on your merits. I love, and by the way, I love when people shit on the fire challenge. I love it. So I love when Charlie was like, look, he said it in the confessional, I don't need to make fire. I did enough on my own to get my way there. And I think, honestly, he even says convincing Ben to take me is more impressive than making a fire and taking out Liz. So I give Charlie props for that. And I give props for when I think someone asked the question, like, if you were Ben, what would you have done? And Kenzie was like, oh, I also would have taken out Liz in fire because Liz had to be taken out. And Charlie's like, yeah, no, I'm taking Liz to the end. Like, I could have easily beat Liz. So I can respect that Charlie stood on merit and said, I played a good enough game where I didn't need that. Maybe the jury wanted to hear something different. I don't know.
Yeah, that was interesting. Because Hunter had that moment where he was like, I hope it doesn't cost you not going into fire. I was like, come on. I was like,
ridiculous.
But Hunter ended up voting for Charlie at the end. So I was like, yeah. I don't think that played a role in anything, but the fact that was even brought up was insane to me. Ryan, what do you think of the jury in general? Because I know it was kind of polarizing everybody's thoughts. I have my thoughts, but I'll let you go first.
So, okay, the other thing I will say is that this, and this is what I've been saying about Survivor lately, is that 45 and 46 have almost felt like they're starting to creep their way back to the old seasons in terms of like the auction, and they tried to tribe swap last season. We didn't see either this season, but what I will say, Dylan, is with the lack of the journeys and the idols, it felt more classic. This final tribal, I noticed that Jeff didn't do the thing that he usually does where he's like, let's talk about the outwit part of the game. Let's talk about the outplay part of the game. He was like, all right, jury, go ahead. And then Tiffany's like, I have a question. Then Soda had a question. Then Tevin had, so they all had a question. So I did like that it felt more classic where we weren't doing that whole summary portion. We were trying to do the whole individual questions. It wasn't obviously the classic of getting up to the front and saying your piece and just going with the speech. I wish we had that again. So on the one hand, Dylan, to answer your question, I do like that everybody had a question. What I didn't like, and I don't know what happened with Tiffany here because I love Tiffany, but I don't know what happened with the stopwatch and the shot clock of you have 30 seconds. That was very weird to me. I don't know what happened there. Maybe what they didn't show us was people were going too long in their answers, but that was a little weird to me.
Yeah, I hated the shot clock. I hated it. It bothered me a lot in real time because I was like, I wanted to hear what everybody had to say in full, and they kept cutting people off when I felt like they were about to get to their point, and it was bothering me. And Ben said it as exit press that it was not just a one-time thing; they were doing that a lot. So like I think Ben had a quote in Exit Press that said like Tiffany was just like doing the shot clock thing like every question, which was that's crazy. That's crazy. I didn't like that at all. If the jury let that happen and that was the way that they wanted to do it, like that's fine. But that bothered me. And oddly enough, I spoke to multiple people who liked the shot clock. So
Really?
it was my brother said he liked it. A guy, I'm pretty sure somebody else I spoke to also said that they liked it. So it's interesting. Really polarizing jury in terms of like what people thought of it. I thought the jury did like not a great job here. Compared to I felt like last season was and I'm not, last season was way more of like a positive everybody loved each other type season than this. But I'm not even like for that always. Like I like when there's there's like arguments and like like people are contentious and stuff like that, but I thought the jury like made it a little bit too much about themselves here. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't love the shot clock. That was really my main issue. I thought some of the questions were pretty solid. Soda asked a really good question, I thought. She basically listed out the perceptions that everybody had of them and said, like, how are you different from what the perception of? I thought that was a great question.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought, there were ups and downs, but it was the shot clock thing. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. It was very polarizing. I've heard similar things. I watched with a couple of friends. I talked to a couple of friends, obviously, your brother and others afterwards. Yeah, people did not like the shot clock that I talked to. I thought the questions that were pretty good. Like, obviously, the classic question of, like, what's your best move? And, how did you bounce back from a mistake? Like, those are standard questions. Those are boilerplate. I love, like you said, the question about this is the perception. How did you prove or disprove that perception? And then Tevin had a good one where he's like, how did you specifically use a person on the jury to advance your game? Like, I always like those questions. And I agree with you completely. I don't mind the classic question from Q of what would you do with the money? Because some people might say, oh, get that out of here. You shouldn't use that in the game. I'm like, that's a classic question. If you love classic Survivor, like, Borneo, Australian Outback, like, that's a classic question of what would you do with the money? And, Ben tries to do the whole of like, oh, I'll give it to charity. I'll do this. And Charlie's like, oh, I'll help my parents and go to law school. I thought Kenzie answered it the best. Like, she's like, look, my whole life I've been working since 15. I've been cutting hair. I own a salon. I'm going to invest in myself. I want to do something else with my career. I'm going to invest in myself. Kenzie, obviously we saw during these last few episodes that she pushed back her wedding. And I think Gavin did the same thing in Edge of Extinction, but like Kenzie pushed back her wedding to play Survivor. She's now married. She's now pregnant. She's like, I want to invest in myself. And maybe that's what caused Maria to vote for her. But like, I thought Kenzie answered that pretty well. But I do agree with you. There were some good parts to this final segment, but some other parts that were kind of meh.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's get to some other parts of the episode. We haven't really spoke a lot about Ben or Liz yet, who I both thought had interesting episodes. I thought, I have to say, we've been vocal on this podcast about Ben being basically completely absent for the edit post merge. I thought he had a pretty satisfying ending to his arc. Really cool to see him win the final immunity challenge right after he there were two things in there. One, he says to Jeff right before that, like, he's on no sleep, like he's like delirious basically, and then he wins the final challenge. The other thing is, I don't know if you caught this, but when he was at the reward, he said something like final immunity challenge is huge tomorrow, like that's really like he said something like that's like a curse or something, or like you don't want to have that, and then he ends up winning it, which was pretty funny foreshadowing. Good for Ben. In terms, like, I really liked the challenge, also the Final Four challenge. I thought it was a really cool concept. The idea of having to balance some motion type activity with actually doing a puzzle was really cool. My only gripe with it is I wish the puzzle was a little bit harder, because it seems like a fairly simple puzzle. It was just the idea of having to, also be able to balance this like ball thing that you were doing at the same time. So I would love to see that back with a harder puzzle, but I guess this was like the first time they were doing something like this, so they would probably wanted to test it out with like an easier puzzle. But yeah.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned because I forgot about that Ben's saying there could be a curse with winning the final challenge. I think he's not wrong, and I need to go back in my memory. We've been doing fire making since 35. So Dylan, we now have 11 seasons of data to go off of. I'm pretty sure out of these 11 seasons, only 2 people have won the final challenge and won the game. And that was D last season, and I'm pretty sure Chris Underwood. I don't think any other person has won the final challenge and won the game. They either win fire or they get brought and they win, like Marianne or Erica. So he's technically not wrong that winning that final challenge does not always bode well. So that's kind of interesting. I did like the challenge as well. I thought it was really cool to see that Plinko or Pachinko machine, because we've only seen that once before. I'm pretty sure we saw that in like Millennials Gen X or something like that. We've only seen it once before. I thought it was pretty cool rather than just doing the classic Samotion. And Dylan, I will admit to you, I got very cocky where I was like, oh, the even seasons are Samotion for the final challenge, and the odd numbers are the balancing the cups on the thing. So I was like, I texted my friends and said, this is going to be Samotion hands down. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't mind the simple puzzle because I thought the whole challenge was about like, time management, and Charlie obviously struggled with the time management there. So I see your point about wanting a more complex final puzzle to end it off, but I didn't mind keeping it simple because you had to balance the thing behind you.
Yeah, there's many variations of that they could bring back also. And yeah, in terms of Liz, Liz is let's talk about Liz for a few minutes, because I thought she had a phenomenal final episode in terms of like if you're Liz, what more, like she had the perfect ending. Like, I mean, first off, what she did at the Final 5 immunity challenge was outrageous. I cannot get over that. At first I was annoyed that she did it. The more I've like listened to some things, I think it's a completely fair game. When I say fair game, I mean like if it's allowed, you could do it. And was it the right move? Yes, because it got Marie out of the game. And if Marie didn't want that to happen to her, she should have kept her threat level low. You know what I mean? I cannot believe that she basically just completely abandoned what she was doing to run back for Kenzie to get the plank. And Kenzie looked like she didn't even know what the riddle was talking about her, right?
Yeah.
And Liz figured it out and runs back and goes and gets her plank and then literally counts with her. Absolutely unbelievable. I literally cannot get over that happened. Yet was a major key in the outcome of the game. And also, I'll say this, right? You want to talk about Kenzie's social game on display? Liz abandoned her chance at winning immunity.
Yeah.
To help Kenzie win immunity. So, I mean, what a wild challenge that was.
Yeah, again, if that doesn't show what a good social game is, about somebody she probably wasn't going to win anyway, but like somebody giving up their shot to win safety to help you, what else is better than that? So while we're talking about that, and then we can get back to Liz just being an insane character this season and also in the finale. To just focus on the challenge for a second, I agree with you where it's very fluky, because I was watching with some friends and they were all very pissed. They're like, this is ridiculous. Like Jeff can't allow that. Like that's crazy. And I was explaining how Jeff doesn't have a very consistent role in this. Jeff is like very back and forth, where sometimes Jeff lets people help. Like I remember in Blood versus Water, like Laura Moret helped Tina beat Vitas in the redemption duel. But then in South Pacific, the famous moment of like Sophie saying, Albert, drop your fucking stack and help me do this things. And Jeff's like, Albert, you cannot help Sophie here. So it's very back and forth. Jeff does not have a very clear rule on helping or not. I think where I come down on it is like, I think if you want to give up your shot to help somebody, you can. But I don't think Liz should have been able to grab Kenzie's board, bring it up to the end, and like help her with it. Maybe if you wanted to run back and like count it, and then you have to run back up and tell her the answer is 25, like maybe sure. But I don't think you can just bring Kenzie's plank. I don't know. You shouldn't be able to, I think, interfere with somebody's physical challenge. Maybe that's the key. And maybe Jeff, I don't listen to On Fire with Jeff Probst, sorry, but maybe Jeff will explain, no, there's a very clear rule. Maybe the clear rule is you can't physically help somebody. Because to use my examples, Laura didn't do Tina's blocks for her. She told her, But then Jeff said to Albert, you can't physically touch Sophie's blocks. So maybe the rule is like you can't physically help somebody, but like I don't know. So I had a slight problem with it, but I don't think it's as wild as people are making it out to be.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like I'm fine with whatever they change the rule to, or if they just keep it as is. But yeah, that if I was truly like rooting hard for Maria to win, I would have been. If I was Maria out there, I would have been really annoyed in real time. The other thing, Liz thought that she was a shoo-in to win the game. And I mean, look, Ben didn't want her there. Kenzie said she didn't want her there. I listened to Liz's exit press and I thought the most interesting bomb that was dropped after the show, where Liz says, I'm not actually a millionaire. This was all part of my game. So naturally, that made me listen to her exit press when I was originally not planning on it. I was like, well, this should be interesting. And what she had to say was so funny. I think, she was basically saying that going out there, she thought her best chance to get to the end and downplay her threat level was to lean into all the like quirky, weird parts of her. And she said that she consistently said in confessionals that all this was part of her strategy and that, calling herself really rich in order to advance herself in the game was a strategy, and that she did explain in confessionals, but they did not show us any of her saying it was strategy, which I think is interesting. I think like it's tough because, would I have liked that to see that edited in? Probably yes, because I think it's only fair. Like if Liz is actually doing all that as strategy, then I think it should be edited in. But at the same time, it's also like, if you make that your identity out there, you got to expect yourself to be edited like that. And the other thing is like, we could talk about this, but it's not good strategy to continue to lean into that because, a plethora of reasons, right? We saw like literally at the end, Ben was like, I don't want somebody who already has millions of dollars to win the million, right?
Yeah.
Like, and just leaning into being quirky, like it easily on another season could have costed her game, right? So I thought it was super funny that she like was in, at least she says she was intentionally leaning into some of that, the parts of herself that would, lead to her getting to the end. But I mean, there's some things that, are, you could lean into it. There's some things that are Liz though, like her being like, after she gets eliminated, like I would have, like, y'all are so lucky, like I would have won. I forgot what the direct quote was, but that was insane. And then the jury's reaction to everything she was saying was all time stuff, all time.
Yeah, no, Liz, in the end, I don't care what people say. Liz was an amazing character. I think we started out being like, oh my God. It was like Emily, like episode 1 and 2. I'm like, oh my God, Liz is so annoying. She's going to be so bad to watch. And then at the end, I'm like, oh my God, Liz was just such entertaining TV. I mean, the fact that we had Liz, Kenzie's good too, but Liz, Q, and Venus's entertainment was amazing. But yeah, no, Liz was delusional, was not going to get any votes. Q even says in the exit press she was not going to get any votes. And I loved what you said about the reactions, because you see Venus like look over and Tiffany's like just so. Yeah, Liz was not going to get any votes, and the millionaire strategy did not work. Rumored billionaire Liz Wilcox, it was not real. Dylan, it's so interesting because I just don't get the strategy at all. Because like you mentioned, if you say that you're a millionaire, not only are people, if it's real, people are not going to vote for you in the end. Or we saw with Ben's like, I don't want to give you a chance to argue your case because you don't need the money. So that's a bad strategy. I then don't agree with her saying that I was going to say at the end, psych, I need the money. I'm not a millionaire, because I think people are going to react and say, okay, so you lied to us, and now it feels like you're begging or you're asking for our vote because of that. Like, it's totally different when Jeremy says, I didn't tell you guys that Val is expecting a baby because that was going to put a threat on my back as a family man already. That's different. It's like, okay, Jeremy wasn't being dishonest with us. It's just like he was trying to, not make us target him just because his wife is expecting a kid. It's completely different for people to say, oh, Liz doesn't need the money. And now it's like, oh, now she wants us to vote for her because she needs the money and she's not a millionaire. So I don't get the strategy, but what I will say is that it provided us with great TV from rumored billionaire Liz Wilcox.
And at the end of the day, like, you need people to perceive you as some sort of a threat in order to win at the end, right? Like, you can't just go under the radar the entire game as somebody who's just crazy, weird, and out there. Because otherwise, if you get to the end, people are going to be like, okay, well, like, what was your game, right? Like, if like that's all you if that's how people perceive you, they're not going to perceive that you actually had any games. So, but like you said, Liz is a phenomenal character. I did not expect myself to be saying this a couple of months ago after the finale and the recap. If the season was wrong, then she is the Debbie of the season. And I'm going to be completely honest, and we could talk about this like a little bit later. Like, she has a non-zero chance of coming back again because of how good a character she was.
I have two more things to say about Liz before we move on. Number one, that'd be crazy to see Liz back. Number one, could you imagine if, to continue the wrong parallels of like, No Idols played and the crazy cast and Michelle versus Aubrey, could you imagine if the show, and they would never do this because they would never put someone's finances on the show, but like, could you imagine if instead of changing Liz's profession, they changed her net worth every episode? Like millionaire, then like 2 billion, then 700K, like just changing her net worth every confessional would have been amazing editing.
Rumored millionaire with like a question mark.
Yeah, rumored millionaire. Exactly. That would have been great. The other thing I'll say about Liz, about her being a character, can you please tell me, Dylan, what was going on with her like her physical state where she was like, I can't make the fire because my wrist bones are too big. And then she walks into the challenge. She's doing like the coach redux of like using the cane. Like what was Liz doing?
The cane thing I think was definitely a joke, but the wrist thing was that was wild. I saw Jesse had a tweet like, I wish Gabler's wrists were like that.
I saw that, yeah.
Which is, I mean, that was insane. But yeah, and apparently that fire making challenge took way longer than it even seemed. Like, Charlie said he thought that they were gonna have to get matches, which is insane.
Oh no, not Becky and Sandra part 2.
Yeah,
oh, no.
yeah. So wild.
Also, one last thing about Liz, and I didn't care about this, but I saw people losing their minds on Twitter when Kenzie won the challenge, and she's like, "Well, I want to pick Liz because Liz helped me beat Maria." And Liz is like, "Oh, I can't. It's Italian. I'm allergic to the pasta." And people were like, "You wanted the pizza, Liz. It's the same ingredients." Like, what? People were like, "It's a grain and a sauce," and Liz is out here like, "I can't have the Italian food reward, but I can have the pizza reward." So Liz is just, if you don't appreciate Liz, then you don't appreciate good TV.
As somebody who has food allergies, she has the weirdest allergies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Insanity.
Anything else we could touch on? I think, we saw the Survivor 40 several preview. I don't really have much to say. I'm happy that we got a more traditional preview rather than just like audition tapes. And it's so funny because this season ended up so good. And like, I literally rewatched the 46 preview after the finale. And I was like, it looked like it was just like a montage to like apply to Survivor. That's really all it was. We didn't really get anything. But more traditional preview. I saw that there is a RHAP podcaster, which is that's crazy. That's really cool. So I think they're still like midway through the season filming. So I'm happy that we even got a preview because I knew they were very early in that process. But yeah, should be interesting to see Survivor 47. I think, for the first time in a while, it feels like Survivor finally has this like momentum back that it didn't have early in the new era. I think it was going the wrong direction early in the new era. Everyone was like, how much longer could it last going this way? And now we're seeing tweets that the viewership is literally like number one. And Ryan, you could read the tweet right now if you want.
Yeah, I was just pulling it up because you mentioned that, and it's so funny because I texted you and your brother about this, but like the momentum is back, not just because of the show to the super fans feeling more traditional, But I just think the show has just been finding great people lately with 45 and 46. And obviously, I'm sure Jam Jam and Carolyn brought in some new people as well. But the tweet that we're referring to is from reality TV_fan that said Survivor ends the 23-24 TV season as the #1 entertainment show among adults 18 to 34, which is our age group, 18 to 49, and 25 to 54 for the first time since the Australian Outback. And the finale was up like 2% in viewers and 11% in demo. So basically, the show's doing something right. And I don't know what Jeff was saying about the whole non-villains thing after Venus and Q, but like we've got to see more of this, Jeff. More chaotic people, more great characters instead of having like game bots and instead of having the advantages. So I hope we see that. And yeah, to your point, the 47 preview, nothing super crazy there that we like, no crazy teases, although I do know the RHAP podcaster. It's crazy. It's my first time, Dylan, actually. I don't know her. I don't know her personally, but like I know of her. And it's the first time that I've seen someone that I know of going on the show before the show. So it's gonna be really interesting for me as somebody who knows of them. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to next season with that. And I guess, yeah, I mean, thoughts on this season, Dylan? Anything else?
Yeah, I think if we wanted to do like a quick ranking of our new era seasons, I told you that I think it is 45, 46, like very slightly below. I easily would hear an argument for 46 over 45. I think both of those these two seasons, 45 and 46, are going to be looked at as potentially down the road, like two of the more important seasons based on what happens from here. So those two are in their own tier at the top. Then I'm going to go 43 in its own tier. Then I'm going to go 42 in its own tier below that. And then below that, 44, 41. That's my ranking of the new era seasons.
Okay, so wait, sorry. You are at 45, 46, 43, 42,
44, 41.
44, 41. Okay. That's a pretty fair ranking. I feel like you said you and I go back and forth between 46 and 45. And to me, they're kind of similar because they both had a very slow start, where 45, we had 2 quits in 4 weeks, which really slowed the season down. The only good episode in the pre-merge, honestly, was the Sabaya vote. Everything else was just a slog. Even with that tribe swap, which was exciting, but then it was the same tribes, basically. And then this season, we had the Banu saga, which took a lot of people out of it. Banu ate up the screen time. Banu had more confessionals than Parvati and Micronesia, which is still mind-boggling to me. So they both had a very slow start. But what they did have, bless you, what they did have was a very, very good post-merge. And I thought the 46 post-merge of like four people in a row, Hunter, Tiff, Venus, and Q not playing idols, was insanity. You could argue 45 had a better final 5 of like Austin, D, Julie, Katora, Jake. It was more interesting than like Kenzie, Maria, Ben, Liz, and Kenzie, Liz, Maria, Charlie. Ben, and Charlie. Thank you. So yeah, you're right. I could see an argument either way. I personally have 46 above 45. You have 45 first. Dalton Ross, actually, when he ranks the seasons, he has 45 right above 46. So I could see it going both ways, but I think we both agree these last 2 seasons have been great for Survivor, much better than 41 through 44. And I think the show is heading in a good direction. I would say overall, Dylan, I got to let it sink in a bit more about where I would rank this overall in the show. Because we talked about D last season. We said, where would we rank D overall and 45 overall? You can give me your thoughts about where you think 45 and 46 rank. Dalton Ross and I both personally, I feel like this is, to me, a very solid, like 18 to 24, maybe 20, maybe 20 to 25. He has 45 ranked number 20 and he has 46 ranked 21. I think that's pretty fair to me. These are seasons where we're not saying that these are like top 10 seasons, but these are way better than what we've seen recently. So I feel like these are very solid, like mid to like lower upper tier seasons, maybe.
Yeah, I think that seems fair to me. I think another thing with Survivor going forward is like now that everyone like is anticipating season 50, it feels like it's like, you know, there's like more momentum. Like it feels like everything's leading up to that now, which is that's gonna be amazing. It films next year. Big Shoguno just asked, how do you rank the new era seasons? I just said 45, 46, 43, 42, 44, 41 in that order. Why do I have them ranked in that order? I just think, look, like we said, 45, 46. Those are in their own tier, in my opinion. I thought 43, just the general cast, I really did like. So I have that as third. 42, I thought there was solid gameplay in that season, but the cast overall was not to level the three ahead of it. 44 and 41 I have as my last two because I thought both the cast overall were, in my opinion, uninspiring outside of a few people. And also I was just not engaged. Like, I didn't think the gameplay was very interesting at all in either of them. So that's the reasons why.
Yeah, I mean, my order is pretty similar to Dylan's, where I would just swap 46 and 45, and then I would swap 42 and 43, just because even though 43 probably had better gameplay than 42, I think I understand why Marianne more than I think I understand why she won more than why Gabler won. So that's why I would swap those. But in terms of Dylan putting his seasons into those three different buckets, I would put them in the same buckets, just flip the orders a little bit. And I think to Big Show's other question about, do we think 45 and 46 are better mainly due to 90 minutes?
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. No, it doesn't hurt. I think we're seeing more gameplay. We're seeing more conversations. Maybe we would have wondered, like, why Charlie's doing what he's doing, but like these extended episodes are showing us more clarity. But look, it's not perfect, Dylan, because obviously one thing that we didn't know from this season was, like, from Exit Press, Hunter was very close with Kenzie apparently, but then Hunter doesn't vote for Kenzie in the end. So that some of the relationships are still a little unclear, even with 90 minutes. But to your point, it doesn't hurt. It only helps add more clarity to the story.
Yeah, and I would say the only reason I have 45 ahead of 46 is simply because, like I said, my preference is I give an edge to, like, seasons where they have, like, a quote unquote dominant winner. And D is in the rare mold. Like, we haven't seen many of those in a while. And D fits that mold. So I like the finale better. I'll give 45 the edge over 46. I do think there's a chance 46 ages way better than 45, but we'll see. I think it all depends on, like, who comes back and what's. I think 45 will have a ton of players back also. So who knows? Yeah. Oh, Ryan, what were you going to say?
No, actually, you just said what I was going to say, where in terms of people being brought back, as we kind of start to wind down the podcast, unless people have more questions, now the season 50 spots are getting even more contentious because, it'd be one thing if Jeff said it's only new era, but when he says, good thing for us, he says, I'm open to anybody coming back, that really limits the pool, especially if it's like old school, new school, you're only going to have so many spots. And last season we were like, okay, this was a great cast. We could see, D back if they want a winner. We could see Austin back. We could see, Kelly, Caleb. This season, Dylan, to your point, we have a lot of people we could see being brought back, especially with Charlie, using your words, as one of the best, playing one of the best non-winning games easily for Charlie. Charlie played such a great game. So we could see Charlie back, but then now he joins the list of, like, do we see Q back? Do we see Venus back? Tiffany, Hunter, Liz? Like, I can name at least 6 or 7 people from this cast that I could see being brought back. So more than ever, when you mentioned earlier, people kind of fighting for their spots in season 50, and we should not be surprised if people are playing 47, 48, and 49 with that in their minds. Like, people are going to be vying for those spots, and already between 45 and 46, they have a lot of great candidates, not to even count, like, the Carolyns, the Jams, the Shans, like, all those people. So.
And 45, you could even say, had like six or seven that I could see coming back. I think I'll put it as, if they have winners on 45, which I think they will, D is as much of a lock as I think you could possibly.
If they have winners, yes.
So I think she'll be back. I think Austin could come back. I could see Jake coming back. I could see Emily coming back. I could see Caleb coming back. I could see Kelly coming back. Like, all these players, like, there's so many now. So look, not everyone's getting on season 50. I do hope Survivor, I hope that, it's not season 50 and then, wait another 10 seasons for Eternity season. I hope that they do in the 50s what they did in the 20s, where it's like, season 20, heroes, villains. And then you have 22 captain season, 23 captain season, 24, 25 new, but then 26 we have fans versus favorites. 27 we have, also Bloodwater, so half the contestants are new and half are returnees. And then once you get to the 30s, you have a second chance. So I hope that we get back to the, every 2 or 3 seasons having more attorneys on, because we need to get some of these people back in the rotation to play again.
Yeah, I think if I had to give my gut opinion, and obviously we don't know how long Survivor will continue. I thought we were going to end at 30. Now we were at 40. Now we're at 50. This could go on for a while if the ratings stay this good. I could see them getting to 60. But yeah, to your point, Dylan, I think Jeff maybe just wanted to build up a new era pool because we had to kind of not start from scratch. We had to really get a new pool of people. We've now had, it's Saturday. I don't want to do math on a Saturday, Dylan, but we've had 6 seasons of all new people. 18 times 6 is 100. We have like 108. Well, technically Bruce played twice, but 107 now candidates, essentially, not even counting 47 and beyond. So to your point, I hope we have a good pool of new people, whether they are all-stars, whether they're second chance type of people like Kelly. I really do hope that if 50 is a returning player season and we bring back a lot of big names, a lot of great people, then maybe Jeff feels like we have a really good pool now. Maybe like every other season, maybe like 52 or 54. Maybe like if Survivor could get to a point where it's like, we're going to give you a fall and spring season, which they do, but like your spring season is your newbies and your fall season is your returnees. Or maybe it's like, we'll do 2 in a row and then we'll give you a returnee. Hopefully they get back to like a more steady approach because we have a really great pool of people that want to play again.
Yeah. And I think the thing with at the moment, it was frustrating when Jeff said that we weren't going to have returnees for a while. Now that we're almost through that stretch, literally 50 is going to be going out to film like a year from now.
Yeah.
Now that we're almost like through that stretch, I think, it does make sense, right? So many of the players in the pre-40 era have played 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Like we've seen those people so many times, whereas they're, it was smart to build up a good pool of new players, but I'm very much ready for season 50. It's gonna be fun.
I'm very excited. My hope is that 50 being, another all. I don't know what the theme would be, but if there's like an all stars or just like bringing people back, maybe it's all old school, new school. What I would hope is that if it's old school, new school, we see some great names that didn't get a chance to play again, like we said, Christian and Dominic and things like that. But then we see some new era all stars. I would then like to see 52 or 53, maybe then be a full-fledged like second chance too, but maybe giving a bit more credit to some of these new era people. I would love to see that happen. So
I'd love it. So I don't think we have anything else today, but I look forward to having a lot of these conversations over the next year about what the cast will look like for 50. So
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, Dylan, these conversations are going to continue because not only are we going to get more rumors and stuff as we head up to 50 next year, but for those that are interested, and I know Dylan hasn't really watched this, but the Australian Survivor show, which I've seen 2 seasons of, and what I will tell people, by the way, is if you want something to watch in the off season, the last 2 seasons of Australian Survivor have been even better than Survivor's been in many, many years, easily. But what I will say, if you're interested, is Australian Survivor is right now going to film, I believe, their next Brain versus Brawn season coming out next year. However, in the fall of 2025, the rumor, Dylan, I'm sure you heard this, is that they're going to do a Australia versus US season. And if we do have an Australia versus US season, we could see something interesting where are people going to be back for season 50 or are they going to come back for Australian Survivor? And are we going to see some legends go to play in Australia to kind of defend the US? So that could be another fun season that might hold us over until 50.
Yeah, that would be really cool. So looking forward to that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks everybody once again for a great season. I know, last few seasons it's been tough not doing right after the episode on Wednesday nights, but still happy for all the people that still tune in on the weekends when we podcast. Who knows? I don't know what my schedule will be for 47 and 48 and beyond. So we will, see when we podcast then. But looking forward to the future. Looking forward to 47. And we will be back at some point, either off season or then or whenever. So once again, just thanks everybody. Love all the live chats each week. Love all the people that continue to tune in. So thank you all.
Yep. Echo what Dylan said. Thank you to everyone watching, the people commenting. It's always fun to talk with the community. Always fun to talk with Dylan about Survivor. That's why we do this show. So looking forward to talking more about 40 several and other seasons coming up. But yeah, we will see you all soon. Stay tuned. And for the last time for 46, grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.